Welcome to Hispanic Biz Success Stories. I'm Homero Galicia. We interview business owners who built successful businesses to learn from them how they built their business and to learn from them their personal story in hopes that you find these stories entertaining and educational. We're fortunate today to have with us Mr. Salvador Perches, the CEO of Perches Funeral Homes. Mr. Perches, thank you for being with us. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Galicia. I appreciate it.
Well, you've got a fascinating story, so we want to get that.
Thank you.
Perches Funeral Homes, what is that?
Perches Funeral Homes was started in 1958 by my father in Juarez. First location was called Funeraria La Paz, 16th of September, Yanahuac, downtown Juarez. And he started his funeral business there, and after that he started Perches Funeral Home, and that's where we're at right now. We've grown in different places, but it's a funeral home and cemetery family-owned business.
And how many centers do you have now?
Right now, a total of 19 funeral homes and 2 cemeteries and a casket factory.
Wow, so you've really grown it.
We have grown it, yes we have, thanks to my father.
Where are your other locations?
We're started in Juarez. We have 4 locations in El Paso, 1 in Las Cruces, 1 in San Diego, 1 in Escondido, California, and 1 in Tijuana, across the border.
So you travel too?
I do. In the beginning, we're going on our 3rd year in San Diego. I used to go a lot more often, but now I'm going about once every 2 months. We got a good group of people over there running the business, but I do go.
You've also been recognized by San Diego as an outstanding entrepreneur.
That was quite an honor. It was we started, like I said, 3 years ago, and it was the Latino Awards, and I was named Entrepreneur of the Year for 2012. And when we started everything there in Escondido, Tijuana, and the impact we did for the funeral services that we provided the Hispanic community there. So I was honored to get that award.
And in 2014, you got another award.
2013, the American Funeral Director of the Year, which I was very honored and pleased to share it with all of my team and all my colleagues, because thanks to them, I was able to get that. And I was the first Latino to get that award, and it's a national award for all the funeral directors in the United States.
Why did they give that award to you?
Well, the way it's done, you send off a sister of mine, Laura. She was so nice to send off all the information about me, how we started, how our father started in the business, and also of what we went through in Juarez through the violence and how we were able to come out of it but still help the community and survive that. So it was a little bit of everything, of expansion of business and how we were doing it, and they recognized that, and they picked me out of wonderful funeral directors across the nation that deserved it as well, but I was fortunate enough to be picked.
Well, it's fantastic that your funeral business, home business, started in Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, and you come over here to the U.S. and you're recognized by the U.S. Organization. That's fantastic.
It was. I mean, my father started in 1958. I learned how to work in the business in Juarez. We opened in '95 in El Paso, but I wish my dad would have seen this award. I dedicated it to him. He taught me how to work and to love this industry, and thanks to him. But it was a great honor.
Tell me about your family. How many brothers and sisters?
I have 7 sisters. I'm the number 7. I call myself the lucky 7. So I was the only boy in the family. My oldest, there's a big year gap, but it was fun growing up with all those sisters.
So you have older sisters?
Older sisters, yeah. The oldest sister's probably 20 years older.
Yeah.
I was born later on in time, and but it was great.
So did they beat up on you as you were growing up?
They were more like moms. Yeah, it was like having 7 moms instead of sisters. But yeah, it was quite something. Yeah.
And you grew up in Juarez?
Actually, no. My father moved in 1963 to El Paso, and I was born in 1969. And what he wanted was my older sisters to come to school here in El Paso and go to college here in different areas. And he was kind of like the other way around. He would live in El Paso but cross the border back to Juarez to work every day.
Wow.
So he just did it for us, and it was a wonderful thing, and we thank him for that. It was, I mean, so, but no, I didn't. I never lived in Juarez, but I spent a lot of time.
Did you go to school in Juarez though?
I did, through third grade elementary school. My dad would take me every day to Juarez and then bring me back. And then after third grade, then I went to school here.
You were telling me about him picking you up in one of the company cars.
Yeah, not quite a nice company car. It was a hearse, and my dad was always busy. He was working, so whoever was available, he would send off to pick me up at school in the hearse, and they would call for the Perches kid, and I would have to come out, and at the time I was a little embarrassed, but I would get back and tell my dad, Dad, don't send to pick me up in the hearse, and he goes, hey, that's the only car we got. So that's what it was. It was quite something. Now I laugh about it, and it was really great. I mean, it was, he taught me how to work. I remember as a kid telling me not to look behind certain doors at the funeral home, but of course you're a little kid and you look, and you just learn how that business is. It is a business, very service oriented, very delicate, but he taught me all that.
So you worked around your father. You grew up around him?
Well, a lot, yeah. I mean, as a kid, he would take me to work on weekends. He would wake me up and take me to work. He would teach me. I started washing the hearses, the limos, going with the guys to make removals. So, learned from the very, basics of that industry business, how to do everything.
So you stayed in that business. Your other sisters, what did they all end up doing?
A couple of sisters, when they were younger, they did help out. One in particular, Elodia, she actually even moved to Merida. My dad opened a funeral home up down there in 1972. It only lasted a little while. It was so far, but then, of course, her and I have made a great team. My father passed away in 2000, and her and I have been keeping up the businesses, and we get of course, involved in the day-by-day operations. She's got some other businesses, but we're still together.
I was fortunate to interview your sister, Elodia Perches Adamson, and she has a bridal store, and she's got an outlet, and her daughter has Elodias, or Ella Blue.
Correct.
She has Elodias.
Correct.
So fascinating interview. But she also helps you with the funeral business.
She does. She does. We're both involved, especially in the Juarez operation. We're both together. We're partners, and of course the other sisters live out of town, but they're all involved in certain ways.
I know one sister's a professor, and what is she, a professor?
Correct, a professor in Latin American studies, and then another one is an attorney, and we have a doctor in the family, so a little bit of everything.
Wow. So after you come to school in El Paso after the third grade, what school did you go to?
Elementary school was Carlos Rivera, Moorhead Middle School, and Coronado High School.
So when you started school, were you English speaking at the time?
Not at all, no. I came, when I started elementary school, I did not speak very much English, and I remember they set me up with a boy and a girl that spoke English and Spanish, so they helped me through third grade. After third grade, I mean, at first I was kind of like, not very popular, but in sports I became, right away I was a fast runner and everything, so I was picked right away in the teams, and it was easy. It was not a bad transition at the time.
So your mom and dad spoke Spanish in the home? Spanish
oh yeah, at home it was all 100% Spanish.
So you learned English by immersion?
Yeah, it was thrown in there in school and learn it, yeah.
In high school, what'd you do?
High school, Coronado. It was, good times there, a little bit of sports, a little track. And then from that, I went to Dallas to school.
And which school was that?
It's called Dallas Institute of Funeral Service, and it specializes in the funeral industry. It's a private little college there for that. The Pierce family owns it. It's been around for, I think, like 80 or 90 years. And you have funeral directing, funeral management, cemetery management, and of course you have the sciences also to deal with, the human anatomy.
So you went through all of that?
I went through everything. I learned how to do everything, got my licenses for everything that you need to be able to practice as a funeral director.
Wow. And so tell me about your father. What was he like? What kind of a person was he?
My father was a very hardworking, simple, down-to-earth man. I mean, he always made people smile, even though the industry we're in, you know, it is a very serious, of course, industry. And but he never lost his humor in certain things, and people just loved him. He would always make people smile, and but the very hardworking and very astute and just a creator of different things.
Now he didn't. He started the business. What was his story? How did he start that business?
It's kind of a fun, not funny story, but the way it was just not by mistake, but it was, he had a bus station where our first funeral home is at now, and it still is, in 1958. He had 3 buses that would take people from Juarez to Casas Grandes, to Madera, Chihuahua, to Krill, and he started the routes and passenger buses. But then, for some reason, Greyhound took him away, and he had 6 daughters at the time, with 3 buses and the bus station. And a friend of his, told him, "Hey, the funeral business is an okay business. It's a humble business." And he sold the buses, went to Dallas, bought 2 hearses, some equipment, drove them back, and hired this guy that worked at a local funeral home, and that's how he started. And from there, the rest, he just grew and bought out his competition in Juarez, and became the strongest one there in the city.
So he was an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Was his background? Did he have? What was his roots?
Well, his father made him work at a very, very young age. 13, 14 years old, he had to produce and work. He lost his mother when he was 5 due to a childbirth. And so he worked very hard. My grandfather was a toughie. He was in the railroad business or industry, and he worked for the railroad down in San Luis Potosí and Cárdenas. And so my father started very young, and then started working for a Japanese family, Kasugas, and he learned the work ethics of that family. And by 19, he had his own store, you know, selling grains and all kinds of stuff. They call it tienda de abarrotes. I don't know how you would explain that, but yeah, he was just always worked very, very hard, and just, you know, he just had to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And your mother, what was your mother like?
My mother, just wonderful lady. She was an only child. Met my father, you know, when they were young, got married, and I think the main thing about her was the way she just was able to help my dad, help him in work and in savings also. You know, they had 6 kids. You know, everyone had to share everything, clothing, food, and just a wonderful lady. I'm fortunate enough to still have her, of course. She's 82, and
fantastic.
She just had a beautiful humor and just poise of just a very people person.
And so what did you learn from your mother?
From my mother is to be humble, to be nice, to be just to be very simple, and she is just you know, a life of a party. She'll get up and dance, and she's just, that's what I learned. My dad was a little more, I don't want to say shy, or maybe he was shy a little bit in certain things, but my mother is just so outgoing. That's what I learned from her.
And she was the saver, though.
Correct, yes. And my father too, both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was, besides teaching you the work ethic, what else did you learn from your father?
From my father was to wake up early and work, and to be humble, to help people whenever you can, and to give an example to your employees of you know, being at work at the time they have to be or before them. And he just taught me how to, I like to exercise. He used to jog and wake up very, very early. It didn't matter if it was raining, snowing, or whatever. He would get up and run. So, and to travel also. He loved to travel. He actually did get to travel the world a lot. And we traveled a lot in driving and down to southern Mexico to visit old friends of his later on in his age. And we just spent so much quality time on those road trips. Him and I, it was great.
Well, it was a good time you had with your dad.
Oh, great time. Yeah, we used to do the expos, conventions, and just I learned a lot from him. And then later on, he even admitted, he was, wow, that's pretty good. I'm learning from you certain things. So it was an honor for him to say certain things like that.
And you're still an athlete.
I am. It's from my downtime. I love to compete. I do triathlons, and I've done a couple of several Ironmans and half Ironmans, and I just love that. It's a way to disconnect, to either go on a jog, swim, or bike, and I just love to do different
what's the
races.
Ironman?
An Ironman is it's the distance of a triathlon, and it consists of a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bikes, and a full marathon.
So a full marathon.
Full marathon, yeah.
In one fell
One
swoop?
day, yeah. Best time is 11:31. Of course, the pros kick. They do like 8 something, but it's not about winning. It's about finishing. It's mental, and it's just going through something like that is just great. It changed my perspective of things when I have to drive or when I have to do something. If I can do that for 11 hours or something, and I'll compare it to something else, it's like, hey, I've done it. Running, biking, and doing this. Why can't I do it in a car or something else? So,
when you're in strenuous exercise, do you think?
I do actually. That's when I think the most. Sometimes I'll get home after a long run or after a long nonstop swim, and I'll jot down notes of what I was thinking, and so many things come through the mind as I just totally disconnect, and I think that's what kind of gets me through those long distance trainings. Yeah.
Well, you're married now and have a family.
3 daughters. They're wonderful, Elisa, Marcela, and Amelie. And I'm teaching them. I've taken them a couple of times to the business, and they're having a good time.
So you take your daughters with you to learn the funeral business in Juarez?
Not in Juarez. Well, they have been to the places in Juarez. They have been to when we've had the Day of the Dead, November 2nd. It's a big, of course, festivity in Mexico, and our cemeteries get overwhelmed with people, vendors, and I wanted them to see that culture. So I have taken them before, especially the 2 older ones. And then in the funeral homes here, I've taken them a couple of times to just help me a little bit in doing a couple of things. They still kind of feel a little awkward that, the type of industry I'm in, and that they have to deal with, either see someone that has passed away. So I'm trying to get them used to it. I mean, I do want them to do their own careers, but it's very important to them to learn a little bit of what we do, and hopefully they can also maybe make a career out of it and help me, because it's about planning, and it's about a lot of things. So
was it uncomfortable for you when you grew up and your father took you?
Since I was so young, I was 5 when he started. I have some pictures there where I'm in where the caskets are, or where they were manufacturing the wood caskets. I was so put into it at such a young age. I think it was a lot easier for me to see that. I remember seeing the first chapel and the casket, and with the person that had passed away inside, and it just intrigued me, I think, more than scared me. And so I felt comfortable around it since very, very young age.
So you've got a full family life, an exercise life, and a huge business to manage.
Yes.
Let me ask you about now the nature of the business. And perhaps we can talk about the Juarez experience, if you don't mind, because you have, when this violence began in Juarez, how many funeral homes did you have in Juarez at the time?
At the time, we had 8 funeral homes. It started in 2008, and it was a hard moment, of course, for everybody in the city, for businesses, but we had 8 locations.
Did you endure that?
It was, we had to. I mean, several colleagues of other funeral homes, actually that I knew that worked for my father when they were younger, didn't make it, and we you just had to deal with it, and perform the services for the families. We did have some violence at the places, and you just had to deal with it and and go through it.
Well, you had to kind of protect your clients.
We did. Well, not just the clients, but our personnel. You know, they would be scared of performing the services or all that, and we just dealt with it the best we could. And thank God that right now, you know, it is way, way, way better. It's changed a lot, and things are coming around in our city. That, you know, thanks to, you know, of course, I always, you know, Juarez is where we started. That's where our roots are in business, and friends and families that have trusted us for so many years, and so we're still there servicing everybody.
And when did you start here in El Paso?
El Paso, we opened up La Paz on Alameda in 1995. It was an old little funeral home right in Alameda, and that's when we started. It was available. And I had finished school, I had gotten my license, and we did a lot of transportations when people either got hospitalized in El Paso, and we would do transfers to Juarez. So what we did was, finally we said, hey, let's open up a place in El Paso. It would facilitate the transportations of crossing the people that needed to be crossed for services back and forth.
Well, that would seem to be something that you're experts at, because we live on both sides of the border here, and you know, many people grow up, you know, raised in Juarez, and they come over to El Paso, have their businesses, and go back and forth, and we actually do live on both sides. But this issue of transporting a body back and forth is complex.
It is. I mean, of course, it takes. You got to do several documents, permits on both sides for the U.S. side and for Mexican side. The permits from the health department. Of course, things have gotten a little bit harder sometimes to cross from Juarez to El Paso, but harder in the way that they just have to do a full, you know, more inspection on paperwork, on the actual body. Sometimes they have to see if it's someone that they might be either looking for or something like that. But it's pretty smooth. We've got it down for so many years of how we do it. But like you're saying, living and working and also dying. Some people, you know, will pass away in El Paso or pass away in Juarez, and we have to take care of that. And we're the only funeral homes that have funeral homes on both sides of the border and in Las Cruces. So.
And you do that also in the San Diego, Tijuana area.
In San Diego, Tijuana also, correct. Yes, we're the only ones there. When I decided to open up in San Diego, I saw the need of the Latinos there having a hard time doing the transportation to Tijuana or to other states of Mexico. So it was just natural, and I was able to start that up. First I did San Diego, then I did Tijuana.
So you saw the need.
Oh yeah, I studied it. I would, you know, call some places and ask questions, and so it was needed. So it took me a while to get it, but I found the location that I liked, and we got it going. What
kind of a heart do you have to have for this kind of business?
Oh, some people say, you know, they'll say, man, you must be, you know, cold or not feel, and I think it's the other way around. I think we do feel a lot, and we care a lot, and I think it's a heart that just really cares for that family, because it's not easy when you're sitting with a family, making arrangements for a loved one. You know, sometimes, of course, there's different types of deaths, let's call it. I mean, if something's natural and the person was suffering, you know, sometimes you expect it with age, but sometimes there's tragedies, and those just never, none of my funeral directors or anyone can, you know, it's not easy. You'll get a knot on your throat when you're sitting with that family, and it gets emotional. And sometimes, you know, I tell my guys, or even myself, you get emotional in funerals. Even after I've done hundreds of them, you'll get a nod, and you might shed a tear at a funeral, and you don't even know the people.
So you're managing the whole event for the family.
Oh yeah, it's a big event. I mean, from, you know, picking up at their home or the hospital wherever they passed away, taking the call at 3 in the morning, sending someone to our guys to pick the person up wherever they passed away, and then you meet with the family. You have to talk about making the arrangements, the church, the mass, the viewing, what they want to dress, what they want to wear, or bring the clothing in for the person. It's a lot. It's getting an event together. Things have been changing lately with technology. Now people want to do videos and show pictures, music, and things have been getting a little. I think it's more of a celebration of life for that person that has passed away.
But you're very sensitive to the family and to the culture of the family. Is that something that you developed over the years, this sensitivity?
You do create it. It does happen. When my dad passed away in 2000, it changed a lot how I thought, because my grandparents passed away when I was very young. So when my father passed away, it changed a lot on how I felt. It was the first time that I had really lost someone that I, cared so much for. So the sensitivity, you have to remind yourself sometimes on who you're dealing with. We'll have meetings with my managers and all the other guys that do the funerals and say, hey guys, you know what, this is very sensitive, and we have to be, very professional and sensitive about everything.
So this is a business that really, really deals with people's raw emotions.
It does. It does. They're tender. They're very emotional. You can be doing everything perfect, and you better not have one little mistake, because it can really hurt the whole thing.
And you got to know who's who and everything. I guess it can get pretty dicey sometimes.
It can. I mean, sometimes with big families, you can be dealing with 6, 7, siblings, and everyone has opinions, and some people want either burial or cremation, or they don't want to follow the person's wishes. And that's why when people buy ahead of time their service, it's just the best thing you can do, because then you honor that and people don't struggle through that.
And you provide that service as well now?
Correct, we do. Yeah, we sell, it's called pre-arrangement or pre-need services. So in life, you get to, you pick what you want, and you start paying little by little, and freezes the price on everything, and it's a good thing. I do truly believe in it. People sometimes think, well, I have life insurance and that will cover my full funeral expense. But you're really not picking what you want, and then of course with inflation and everything, prices do go up.
But you're saying something else too. You're saying that prearranged really prevents a lot of family issues from coming up later.
That's the main thing. I mean, I think that just keeps everyone, you do it for your kids, and it just keeps everyone calm and at ease, yeah.
Well, you've certainly grown a fascinating business in an area that's difficult, dealing with families as they pass on, and it's not easy dealing with the families. And then what you have to do, you have to have just a tremendous amount of decorum and presence and patience. So we want to understand how you build that business, because you certainly are an entrepreneur with that and have grown that. Now, Mr. Perches, we've come to learn that you own 19 facilities. Is that right?
Correct.
In Juarez, El Paso, Las Cruces, San Diego, Escondido, and Tijuana. Is that right?
You got it right.
All over.
That's right.
Well, how in the world did you build that business? Because your father started in Juarez with one?
With one in 1958. It was called Funeraria La Paz, and opened up his second one in 1970. Bought out his competition in Juarez. There was about 2 funeral homes and 2 cemeteries, and then opened up some more, and we opened up in El Paso, 95, Las Cruces, and we've just been expanding with that thanks to him.
Your father passed away in 2000, is that right?
Correct, 2000.
And so you then took the business.
Correct. My sister and I, Elodia, we had 5 funeral homes in Juarez, 2 cemeteries, and we had La Paz in El Paso, and we opened up 5 more in Juarez, a total of 10 now over there, and we've just expanded with in other locations. El Paso here we have 4, in Las Cruces, and then later on in San Diego and Tijuana.
Now, you also were you have some manufacturing?
My father started a manufacturing plant in Monterrey, Mexico, metal caskets, And we took it to another level when I remember right after I graduated from Dallas Institute of Funeral Service, I moved to Monterrey to learn that business. And we were only selling in Mexico the caskets. And then I told my dad one day, hey, why don't we export? So I was about 22 at the time, I believe, and I opened up a little warehouse in San Antonio and started knocking on doors at the funeral homes and selling the caskets that we were making in Mexico. And a lot of these places would just shut their door. Oh, these were manufactured in Mexico. We don't want it. And it was a little frustrating. But we were able to do it. We had good quality. I would do the conventions. And another day, I also told my dad, let's go show in Europe. In Paris, they have the biggest European funeral show called Funerer. And so we showed, and we started exporting overseas our caskets. So.
And how did that go?
It went well. We came back with about 8 containers sold. We sold to Poland, to South Africa, Philippines, and we started expanding that market. Later on, of course, the manufacturing part of it got a little more difficult, Chinese product coming in, and we concentrated more on the service business, service-oriented more than manufacturing.
So your business is a service business.
It's more of a service business, correct. Very service-oriented, and yes, sir.
And really you service the families.
Correct. Service the family. Of course, the deceased, you have to, of course, take care of them. Once you have a loved one in your care, you have to, there's so many details that you have to be careful with. But yes, you have to take care of that family through that moment, organizing the funeral. There's different culture matters that come along. You know, some people want something very simple or very elaborate, and you have to listen to those families to give them what they want.
Now, working on both sides of the border, Mexico and the U.S., different cultures, different traditions. What's the difference?
Very much so. I believe that, I mean, you have to listen to the people. You know, our Hispanic, our Mexicano community here is so important. Of course, the percentage of it being so high that you have to listen to them on what they want. I mean, they want, when they're at your funeral home and they're at the facility, they like to, you know, have a longer viewings, like to bring in food or their music that they want. They might bring mariachis or a trio. So, you know, give them longer hours for that. In some rural communities, let's take, for instance, Socorro or Canutillo or different areas, some families will still want their loved one at home, and and it's totally okay to do that. We'll take the body to the house, they view all day, all night, then the next day we'll go perform the service. And when you do the services in those rural cemeteries, you know that they still lower the casket with a strap, like the old days, or call it or like, you know, and people help take care of that burial. You know, in the other cemeteries, sometimes they, by law, or for matters, they tell you to go away, then they take care of everything. And when you do these rural cemeteries, especially in Juarez too, but even here, you know, there's nothing like everyone helping with a shovel, and you actually hear the dirt or some pieces of rock hit that casket, and that's closure. It's very different, total different type of funerals than the other traditional services.
And the funerals in Mexico, you know, they're very different. Are they much more emotional, or?
They can become more emotional. I mean, people at the cemeteries does get more emotional. People at our cemeteries in Juarez like to see you lower the casket, and they won't leave until everything is closed, the grave. They'll help also, and so it is different. And you know, being here in the border, being with our Mexicano community here, it's very different than some other services that other funeral homes might have.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned earlier about the Day of the Dead. In Mexico is a celebration, and people go to the funerals, the cemeteries.
Mostly of the cemeteries.
And you own 2 cemeteries.
Yes, 2 cemeteries, yes sir, and it's a big, big day.
And so what do you do to accommodate all that mass of people?
I mean, we do prepare for it. It is a big, big event. We close the doors to the cars that can go in because people flock the cemeteries. taking flowers. They wash the grave. They will have musicians throughout the cemetery, and they hire them for 2, 3, 4 songs. We have street vendors. Of course, the city also, I mean, we have the two cemeteries, but you also have the municipal cemeteries that also get filled in the city. And the city gets involved, and people put out their spaces and sell food, flowers, balloons for the kids. So it becomes, people decorate the graves, and we'll let that go for like 2 weeks, and then the cleanup is also a challenge. But it's just a great way of how people throughout Mexico celebrate the Day of the Dead, November 2nd.
Now in the U.S., it's very different.
It is different, of course, being here in the border and having our community being so Latino and Mexicano here. We, several cemeteries still get a lot of people visiting, and you don't have as much as the vendors and certain things, but you still have music, and people do go out in the cemeteries and celebrate their loved ones.
But in El Paso, you built some new funeral homes.
Correct. We have 2 new ones, West Side and Far East, Joe Battle, and we built those in the last 4 years. Yes.
And you built them. You did some things different. What did you do different?
We did do to accommodate more of that tradition of making, having bigger lobbies, having people to celebrate the life of their loved one. Little cafeteria areas where people can have coffee, drinks, take some food. And people want to gather. When there's a funeral, I mean, it's when you see someone, sometimes you say, oh, I only see you in weddings and funerals. And it's very true saying, because, that's when people come in from out of town. So we made our facilities, our lobbies, so comfortable, very homey-like, let's call it, and people just sit and gather and talk. And if the viewing's from 3 to 9 and they want to stay till 11, we let them. We don't hurry them, and we just let them be comfortable.
So besides managing individual funerals yourself, you also manage the entire business. How many employees do you have?
Total of about 300. In Juarez, it's about, let's say, 225, 230, and on this side in the U.S., about 50, 60. We have all kinds of levels and people working for us for a long time. But I get involved in a little bit of everything. I still wait on families. I take the calls once a month for a week, answer the phones all night long, and I just like to get involved in my business and in all aspects of it.
How do you manage so many people?
We do have great managers. We have a great team. I mean, it is difficult at times, or sometimes you have to make certain decisions on changing managers or people that have been with you. But it's just a way of being humble with them and being just true and let them know that you are as much as as a worker as them, and just set an example, and that's what my father taught me.
So, of your orientation,
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in the business with your father, your guide, the way you operate, do you operate pretty much the way your father used to operate, or did you change a lot?
I think things have changed. Of course, from then to now, of course, technology has changed so much. Computers, internet. I mean, I still remember the day when we would do the services, the contracts, everything by hand, everything handwritten, everything typewritten. But now the way the expansion has become, we do have different levels of management. We have a CFO, is a very good friend of mine, Gerardo Garcia, and we have learned how to grow in-house attorney in Juarez. So it's quite has changed a lot. It really has.
What challenges have you faced in growing the business?
Oh, I think sometimes the more you grow, of course, the more responsibility, the more people to manage, but it just traveling back and forth. So it becomes somewhat of a challenge, but it's just, I'm always just thinking of what other city might need, you know, a funeral home or expansion, and I'm just always kind of just waiting on see where I can grow a little more.
You want to grow?
I do. I mean, I believe there's still cities out there in the United States that are, you know, I do concentrate with the Hispanic community. I like to see in what cities there's a need of that service, because it's sensitive, and sometimes you have, you know, cities, you can have a city in Kansas or Oklahoma that, you know, the Hispanic population might be already at 30–40%, and you have a lot of corporate-owned funeral homes not taking care of that need, and so yeah, I'm always kind of on that edge there to think of where else I could take it.
Well, a lot of your competition is the large corporate organizations.
Oh yeah, it's nationwide. They have grown a lot. Locally, half of the funeral homes in El Paso is corporately owned. So it just, which, you know, people and families, you know, I think need to know sometimes either who's corporate, who's not, and I think they do. And it's just a matter of people making a choice and comparing services and price also.
What's the difference between corporate and a locally owned?
Well, the main thing is price. Sometimes, I mean, corporate. I don't know how, you know, of course, how they operate internally, but they you know, it is more expensive. And when you're locally owned, there's several of us here, and we just perform our services just the same. But you know, we have a lot of savings for families.
But you keep your ear tuned to the families. You keep your ear to that yourself.
Oh, I do. Oh, yeah. I listen to families. I like to introduce myself when we're doing funerals, or if my managers are waiting on families, I'll go in and ask if everything's okay. When I go to Juarez, and we have one of our bigger places has about 4 chapels, you know, I'll go around and check even to see if the temperature's okay in each chapel, and before we open to the public, I'll still go and see if the person that's being viewed, the body, if everything's okay, if the cuffs on the sleeve are fine. I'm very detailed. If the hearse is clean, you know, I learned all that from my father, that everything just has to be just right.
So you've established a culture in your organization?
We have. I mean, my dad's picture is in every facility, in every funeral home. On his birthday, we will put flowers out for him. On his anniversary of death also. But the culture is, you know, my dad's legacy of service, of hard work, and detail.
Detail in terms of making sure the cuff is right.
In everything, yes, sir. Yeah, and from the cuff, from the hair, from the position, from everything. It just has to be, you know, people notice details, and again, when it is a service-oriented industry and very sensitive, so we just have to be careful on everything.
So what would you say is your distinguishing characteristic of your business in terms of your business, the way you do business? What distinguishes you in the way you do business?
Compared to other industries or other funeral homes, or just in general?
Yeah.
It's our business and our service of what we do. And my father used to say, since 1958, we've answered the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day. So it's something that it just never stops. You always have to be there for the families. And to distinguish yourself from others is how you just treat your families on all the attention to detail, and I think that's the main thing of how we distinguish that.
So you really focus on details, on family desires. You have to have a particular ear that you've developed over the years. So that's not easy for anybody to do.
No, I mean, you learn it, but you do have to listen to your families. I mean, every family's different. Every family wants something different for their loved one, for the funeral. It could be funeral, cremation, what they pick, what they want to decorate the chapel with. Some families will bring their own for their pictures, music, different religions. So yes, it's just so detailed in every aspect of what you need to give to the family.
What do you enjoy most of your business?
The most thing that I enjoy is when a family will call back or write a card, a thank you card, and saying how wonderful the service was, even though they were going through such a hard time, that they acknowledge and say thank you, and they'll either thank one of my managers, or it could be the one that drove the hearse or the limousine, of how attentive he was. And to me, that is the most satisfaction, is when a family is thankful and acknowledges us for what we do, because it's very delicate. Sometimes people don't think about it as that, but it's a very delicate thing that we have to do. You know, at 3 in the morning, we'll have to get up and go pick someone up, and at a home, at a hospital. People are crying, and then you meet them the next day, and it's not easy. It really isn't.
And yet you're still running a business.
It is. It is a business. I mean, you have to open up every day. You have to pay bills, mortgages, everything, payroll. And so you have to combine both, and you do have to be careful on details, on your competition, on where things are at, pricing. So it's like a business like others. But
so you take care of detail, but you're also looking to the future.
oh yes, yeah, always looking to the future, either of expansion or where it's going, or trends. Cremation becoming so popular due to, I believe, due to cultural differences of people traveling. Before, you know, in the old days, the cemeteries would be next to a church. Everyone stayed in the same little town forever. Now, with everybody traveling or kids moving out of town, cremation has been a choice for many families now. So you have to keep up with all those changes in our industry.
In terms of the industry, you compare yourself to the industry standards. How do you, because your market is different than traditional funeral homes, I suspect.
It is a little bit. I mean, we do, of course, everything traditional, just like either the corporate does or any other funeral home. The difference is, I believe that, I mean, we do have options for families where we can offer families the most affordable. Sometimes people are caught off guard when a death occurs, if it's an accident or all of a sudden a death in the family happens, and they're not prepared. So we're there to help out as much as we can, so we can offer in Juarez or here in El Paso, of course, from the most economical to, you know, something very elaborate. Just depends on what the family wants.
But you've always wanted to grow the business. You had a drive to grow the business. Where did that drive come from?
The drive, most definitely from my father. He always wanted to grow his businesses in many ways, and he did, starting from his little place in 1958, La Paz. And I believe if you inherit or you are handed something, if you keep it the same, you really didn't do much. You know, and I think my mind just wants to grow, and I just, you know, if my father left us a legacy of hard work, he worked so hard and left us the business, you know, all I can say is, you know, I need to grow this, and it just comes out naturally. I mean, I think it is from my dad's, you know, upbringings and teachings, and but I just have to, because then I feel I didn't, you know, I have to feel that I accomplished something and leave it to my kids.
So what's your legacy?
My legacy is hard work. It's growth. It's I want to leave a legacy of a very service oriented, family owned business. That's what I want to do.
You bring a depth to the idea of service, of servicing the customer in a different way because the nature of your business. What could you say about quality service? How do you how do you measure quality of service in your business?
The way you measure it is by, of course, not having mistakes. First of all, it's a very sensitive time that the families are going through. And service is being attentive at the door, helping the families throughout the whole service. And even after the service, we do offer a bereavement. We have a bereavement counselor that every Thursday in Juarez and El Paso that we offer families at no charge, that they at one of the chapels of the funeral homes, people can go and listen. And that's been growing. We have that. We help the community also in tragedies, or the old folks home in Juarez. We've been taking care of them for over 50 years at no charge, doing the services for them. It's called the Asilo de Ancianos, where they don't have families, and the church runs it, but we've been taking care of them for a long, long time.
What is that?
Asilo de Ancianos is the maybe old folks home, but they're abandoned. They don't have families, or they're very, very poor. And so we take care of the funerals for them. The nuns there at San Marcos Church in Juarez take care of them. But we perform the services for them. We have a special place for them in one of our cemeteries. And they deserve, they were people, hardworking people for the city. And sometimes they're forgotten there, and we just take care of them and give them a nice service.
And you've been doing that for how many years?
Yeah, so I think since 1960.
Yeah. But so you also do that kind of work in all your places? We
do. Here we'll help out. Anytime the hospices or families or other organizations, if they feel a need of that families need help, we just go out, out of our way to just help out as much as we can. And if we have to, give the service, we will.
It's interesting that as you talk about your business, got to keep reminding myself that it is a business and you're running a business. Because you're focused on helping families and doing things proper at that difficult time in life. But how do you keep your focus on business? Because you do that yourself. You keep it on.
Yes. Even though I go in and I look at the details that I have to give a good service, the business part of it just has to work. In order to expand, in order to keep growing, we need to look at the numbers, and it has to be it has to work. So it is. Very much so. Sometimes you'll, I don't want to say struggle a little bit, but it becomes a little difficult at times if you expand, or when we open up a brand new place. For a while it takes it takes a while to get used to them having a funeral home, say, far, far west, on the west side of town. So we have to, of course, advertise in different ways, either media or, of course, internet and billboards and different things. So that's the way it works.
So what message would you have for young entrepreneurs out there that look at business, maybe not your business, because it's probably hard to get into your business, but what would you say to a young person starting a business?
I just say believe in what you want to do. Go at it 100%. The funeral industry, it is a little different or hard, but anyone, sometimes when I went to school, I had people that didn't grow up in it, and I would say, wow, how did you get into this industry? But I think that the focus, hard work, and just don't let up, and always think ahead of how you want to expand.
Well, it's been a rewarding life for you. You're passionate about what you do.
I am. I'm very passionate on what I do, and I don't see myself doing anything else. I truly, it is my calling.
That's and you're comfortable. You belong what you're doing, and you enjoy it. When you hire people, do you look for special characteristics?
I do. And, it's got to be a caring person. I look at their, their demeanor and how they express themselves, because the way they express themselves in that interview is how they're going to express themselves with someone that just lost a loved one. So it takes a special touch and tact to get that right person.
Well, you've certainly given a perspective on a very sensitive business, because that's what it is. It's a very sensitive business, and your whole team has to be very careful about that. And you're oriented on dealing with people at a very difficult time in their life, and so quality is how you deal with people, isn't it?
It is. It is. You cannot forget what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with. We have to remind ourselves, hey, this is sensitive, and we have to take care of the service. But again, we have to take care of business also, and just be very focused and very detailed.
Well, I certainly appreciate your sharing your story, because we've known the name of your business for many years here in El Paso, but never got to know you very well. And so I appreciate your sharing your story, and certainly impressed that you won these national awards, National Funeral Director in 2013, and also San Diego recognized you as a rising entrepreneur in
Latino entrepreneur. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So you've got national U.S. awards and regional awards, and so you're recognized in your field, and so that's very good for us in El Paso, because you're leaving a legacy. Your father left a legacy, and you're taking that on. So really appreciate the time you shared with us, and I believe that our viewers enjoyed the story. And thank you for watching this, and trust that this was entertaining and educational for you. And stay tuned for Hispanic Biz success stories. Thank you for watching, and good day.